and keep the mic here so that I am not blowing all of you out of the water with the voice and with the sound. Is that okay, Alana? Terrific. Okay. All right. You want me to just jump in, or you want to start?
No, I want to talk. So I am profoundly excited to invite Lori Getz back to continue to educate our community about cyber safety, internet safety, and just general usage matters of the technology that is so much integrated into everything we do all of the time and can be a real source of fear for parenting. And I think we actually even named this session today Fear and Myths, and that was definitely in response to concerns that happened this year and every year about things that are maybe harder for us to understand in the first place. And when there's something that's hard for us to understand, the fear level and anxiety level gets entirely heightened. But what I'm super excited to share about Lori is that Lori is one of the foremost experts in her field. She works with law enforcement on these matters, and she is the type of educator who exemplifies being engaging, being available, and being able to address the needs of every learner in her class. And so I'm inviting you into her classroom now. But I can say that over the last many, many years, I have worked closely with Lori as an instructor in the graduate program that I ran for teacher education. And I mean, I had the privilege of reading all of the teacher evaluations, and by far, the teacher evaluations with the most exclamation points, the most practical use into classroom management and classroom decision-making was Lori's class. And so with all of that, she's been on CNN, she's does the circuit. We're very, very blessed to have her in our local community. And I know that once you hear her, you'll always return to see what updates she has and how she can continue to help ease the misunderstanding and help guide our students and ourselves on this unknown path into the world of the internet. So thank you so much, Lori.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know what to say. That was not what we talked about as far as an introduction was concerned, but thank you. That was very kind. I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for being here with me this morning. My name is Lori Getz. I am an internet safety, security, and ethics specialist, and I get to travel the country talking about how much I love technology. And that's probably not how you thought I was going to start the conversation today, but I do. I really, really love technology. Does anybody else in here like technology? Not necessarily parenting it, but actually using it. Yes? What are some of the ways we use technology where it makes our lives better? What are some of the things you like about it? Oh yes, you have to talk. Staying connected. Maps, yes, absolutely. What else? Shopping, that's my favorite. That is my favorite. And I apologize if you've heard me in the past. I got to tell a quick story about that. But my youngest daughter, Lainey, she's now 8 years old. But about 3 years ago, I put Amazon Echo Dots in my house for a variety of reasons, which I'll discuss. It was really because we got all screens out of the bedrooms. We got all cell phones out of the rooms. And my kids were saying, but wait a minute, what about an alarm clock? What about music? What about these things? And so we now use the Echo Dots in lieu of using cell phones. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But Lainey, my little one, at the age of 5, started talking to this pod as if it was a person. And she would say things that were appropriate, like, Alexa, what time is it? Alexa, what's the weather today? Alexa, do I look pretty? Which was not the one that was appropriate. But my favorite was one day she said, Alexa, I'd really like some slime and some Shopkins and some Pix Me Pops for my birthday. Can I have those? And Alexa said, of course you can. I found them on Amazon. Would you like me to send them to your house? And Lainey very politely said, yes, please. So 2 days later, when the box of all these things show up, I thought her grandparents sent an early birthday present, and Lainey is running through the house screaming that it's from her best friend, Alexa. She thought there was a real person living inside this little pod, granting her every wish. So this all starts to make sense to me because for a week before this happened, I kept getting toilet paper. from Amazon. Amazon was sending me boxes of toilet paper. And I'm thinking, why am I ordering toilet paper like one by one? What did I do? I couldn't remember. And it turns out it had been Lainey in her bathroom all week long yelling, Alexa, I need more toilet paper. And so she kept ordering it. So I have no idea how she actually took care of what she needed to take care of, but it doesn't matter at this point. I tell this story, it's a funny story, but also because it's such a good reminder for me. Whose fault was this? Okay, be honest. Yes, thank you very much. It was my fault because I, as the parent, handed my child the device and forgot to explain how it worked. And if I do this for a living, I can only imagine what goes on in other homes, because how many of your children know more about technology than you do? Even if you're really tech savvy. Absolutely. It wasn't like you found TikTok and said, hey, there's this really fun app called TikTok, and gave it to them. Or, hey, you should really be playing Fortnite. We're not the ones that are telling them what apps they should be using. They're finding these things, and hopefully they're telling us about it, which means that they need a lot of information too. One of the biggest issues we have as parents when it comes to technology is that when we constantly talk about the technology, we're always wrong because we can't keep up with it. So we make certain statements like every stranger out there is a 50-year-old pedophile that wants to do bad things to kids, right? Which is what we said 15 years ago. But the kids know that that's not true because they're video chatting with these other players and they're talking to them and they know they're 12 years old. So the things we're saying don't make any sense to them at all. Or don't put it out there if you don't want it out there forever, right? These are things that we say. And then they come back with, but it's Snapchat and it disappears after 10 seconds. So you don't know what you're talking about. Well, part of the issue with that is that they don't know what they're talking about. They think they know, but they don't. So what we're going to do here today is I'm going to try and take your very well-honed parenting skills that you have in the real world and translate them to the digital world. So we stop talking about technology and start talking about behavior. Because how many of you feel comfortable talking about behavior and parenting behavior? Raise your hands. You're all sitting here. You're all, yes, this is why we're all here. And so hopefully that will make you feel empowered to have these conversations and not scared. A lot of times that fear that Deborah just talked about, it's so real. We say things like, don't tell anyone your name, address, and phone number online because some scary boogeyman is going to come and get you. But then again, that's not true either. In the 15 years that I've been doing this and working with federal law enforcement, I've never seen a case where an internet predator saw a picture of a child on Facebook and just came to the school and took them. That never, ever happens. Never. Internet safety isn't even about trying to hide your information. You can't. There's no way to hide your information online. Do you know this? Let me show you something real fast. I didn't pull it up, but let me show you. Am I terrifying you already? Because that's not what I'm meaning to do. You got very, very quiet, and that makes me nervous. Okay, so hang on. Let me pull up I can't type with one hand. There we go. Okay, so this is a screenshot of a website, and I can look up anyone by a name, email, phone number, username, address, or even some of your friends, and pull up all kinds of personal information about you and your family. This is my mother-in-law. This is my husband's mom. And so when I pull her up, I can see gender, age, ethnicity, marital status, occupation, level of education. Here's a map to where she lives today and where she used to live. Sorry, Bunny. Here's who lives in the house with her. This is where your children should show up, is underneath you. Has anyone heard of this law called COPA that says that no child under the age of 13 can have any social media? And that includes a YouTube account, a personal Google account, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, all of it is social media. If it is for school, if you have been set up with a Google account through the school, that does not count. I'm talking about a personal one where they call themselves glitterbutterfly@gmail.com. Okay, they can't do that until they're 13 years old. And this is why. It's because the internet, you got to think of it like a giant vortex that sucks information. And every single thing you say and do online gets dropped into this vortex. Every text, every message, every account you create, every website you look at, every piece of music you listen to. My daughter Charlie and I were having a conversation over spring break about a show called Dance Moms. And I had my cell phone about 5 feet away from me, and I had Instagram running in the background, and I wasn't paying attention. And because I didn't swipe Instagram closed, and because I have enabled the microphone so that I can make short little videos, Instagram gets to record what I talk about, sell that information to third parties, and then that information comes back to me as an advertisement. So we're talking about Dance Moms, just talking, and the next day when she goes to the smart TV and turns it on to Hulu, what do you think the first suggested show was? Dance Moms, right? Because Instagram was able to take that information that they pulled from the vortex. So this 13 thing is because that vortex can't make your information public until you're 18 years old. You have to be an adult to have a page like this. So it says, well, how do we know when someone's 18? We'll use social media as our baseline. And we know the day someone uses social media, they're at least 13. So now we just have to wait 5 years before we make all their information public. So if your child was 9 when they got their first social media account, how old will they be when they have their own page? 14, exactly. So that's why that law is there. But my favorite part about the site is I can see what my family likes to do. This website's called Spokeo. But there's Truth Finder, People Finder, whitepages.com. Yes, it cost me $3.99 for 6 months, right? And so I highly suggest, the reason I took screenshots is because they track you when you go to the site. So, and if you want to opt out of the site, you want to go and remove your information, you can try, but then they're going to ask you 8 questions to verify you really are that person, and then they just collect that information too. Don't bother. Don't bother trying to remove your information. It doesn't work. If you have issues with stalking, then we can talk afterwards and I can get you in touch with a lawyer who can help kind of put some space between you and these websites. But it's a whole lot of money and it doesn't last. I did this with my husband. We took, I had some trolls that were coming after me, internet trolls. I had gone on the Today Show and I said that trolls were between the ages of 18 and 34 and live in their parents' basements. It was a really dumb thing to do. So the trolls were like, yeah, we're gonna go after you. And they started sending things to my house and doing all sorts of weird stuff. But after 3 years, all my information was back up here. And so it didn't really matter. But the reason why I show this is this last part here, because this website shows what my family likes to do. This is the internet vortex collecting all the information. That whole idea, once you put it out there, it's out there forever. This is actually what we're talking about. That my family, we play sports and we love to read and we care about healthy living and we cook and we travel and we donate to causes and have a swimming pool. Raise your right hand if you find this website a little bit creepy. And your left hand if it's kind of interesting and cool, and both hands if it's creepy and cool, because that's what the kids will say. Absolutely, me too. If anyone's worried this is dangerous, this is the first myth I need to, I need to dispel. Thank you, I couldn't think of the word. This is the first myth I have to dispel, because no, this website by itself is not dangerous. Because unless you have attracted some attention to yourself, no one even knows you're there. Right? Internet safety isn't about trying to hide name, address, and phone number. It's about understanding that we don't give people information they don't need to have, and we don't cultivate relationships and hide them. That's actually what internet safety is about. Do those rules sound familiar? Do you guys remember when you were kids? That's what we were taught. Don't draw too much attention to yourself. Don't give people information they don't need to have, and don't hide things from your parents. Whether it's in real life or it's online, the relationships your children have are the most important thing for you to know about. You don't need to know every detail about them, but you need to know who they're in relationships with, because that is what's either going to keep them safe or get them into trouble. Internet predators, again, they develop friendships with kids online to the point where the child thinks this person is their confidant, their best friend, the coach they're looking for, the parent that they need in that moment, and then they choose to go to the predator. That's how it works. So we're going to talk about how do we avoid that situation. That's where we're going to go. Is anyone wondering, though, a little bit more about how this got here? Can I explain this a little bit more? Yes, go ahead. Please. Yes. Yes.
From others. But I'm curious as to why you would have Alexa in your house.
Yes, because, yeah. So I was going to repeat the question. Is that okay? So the question was, why would you have Alexa in your house if everything is listening to you? Because Alexa is not listening to you until you say Alexa. And so I like Amazon and I like Apple because I like how clear they are in their policies about what they say they can and cannot do. So there was a news report where they had people from Amazon on the news very recently talking about what it was that they were listening to. And again, it's not people sitting there listening to your conversations. They use these giant supercomputers to collect information in order to create a profile of things you may like so they know what to sell you. And Alexa, think of it like this. Have you ever been in a really crowded restaurant and lots of people are talking and it's hard to hear anything, but then someone says your name and you totally cue into it? It's a frequency that you're used to. That's what Alexa does. And so Alexa is not listening to you until you say, Alexa. There's a blue ring that will show up, and so you can see it. The bigger issue that people have with the Alexas is not the device itself, but their Wi-Fi networks that get hacked. that they don't have secure Wi-Fi networks, so people hack into them and then use them as listening devices. So if you've got a secure network, then I'm not concerned about having those devices in the house. Does that make sense? It's an excellent question. Okay, so I want you to think of all of the things you do online, your tweets, your likes, your photos, your news, your shares, your comments, your posts, as your thoughts, your feelings, special moments in time, and your image. Because that's what it is. That's what we're posting. I just thought of something, or I want to do something, or look at this really cool picture of us doing something really fun right now. There are thoughts, feelings, special moments, and our image. When we think about it this way, we've got to think about what privacy really means with all of that. How many of you believe that privacy is important? Okay, what does that word mean? I'm going to make you talk to each other. You're going to talk to the person next to you, and I want you to try and come up with a definition for the word privacy. And now, a couple of things. Please don't tell me it's the opposite of public, because that's an antonym and not a definition. Please don't tell me it doesn't exist on the internet, because that's not what I'm asking. And please don't use a device to look it up, because that would be cheating. All right, what does the word privacy mean? I'm going to give you like 35 seconds. Go. Okay, oh, the conversation's starting to change. Okay, now you have to come back to me. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Is anyone willing to share what their group's definition of privacy is? Yes. I love that. Letting people know certain information you want them to know, not knowing information you don't want them to know. Absolutely. The word privacy simply means control. It is your right to control who knows what, who sees what, how much they see, and how much they know. Okay, so if that's what it means, who controls our information after we post it? Pretty much, yes. So let's look at who controls it. Mostly Google. Okay, so yes, the companies definitely control our information. Now, are there people at Google sitting there reading your Gmail and then making fun of you? That's only happened twice, and both times they got fired. But it's giant supercomputers that are making kind of profiles for us to tell us what we're going to like. They don't even have to know what we like right now. Their AI is so good that they're going to present you with things they know you will like that you didn't even think about yet. Yes. Emails like Gmail is not private. It's not private. You don't get to control what they mine the data of. If you're paying for a service, then you have more control. If you are not paying for a service, your data is their revenue. So you got to think of it like that. So do you remember what happened last year with Facebook when they got into all that trouble because of all of the information that was leaked out to a third party and all of that? And they came and Sheryl Sandberg went on the Today Show, and basically what she said is, listen, we've got to monetize this somehow. And Google was really the first to figure out how to monetize the internet. Back in the early 2000s, that dot-com bubble burst. No one could figure out how to make any money off of the internet because no one was paying for anything. And then Google came along and said, hang on, let's use this TV model that we've had for so long where we attach advertisements to things, and then that way the advertisers will pay and the people will be able to use it. And then they realized, hang on, with AI, we can actually figure out what each individual person likes, and we can target the ads specifically to them. Not even a demographic anymore, but a person. And so no, if you're not paying for it, what Sheryl Sandberg was saying is we've got to make money somehow. So your data is our money. No. If you're paying for it, the 5 gigabytes of storage with Apple? No. So Apple, when you read their privacy policy, so what Apple is doing with your information is some of the information through Apple is encrypted, meaning that they don't look at anything. Other information with Apple, they kind of will scan and look at certain things to figure out what apps you might want to buy or what other purchases you might want to make. So they're not taking your photos from the cloud, from your iCloud, and selling those photos. They're not doing that, but you may be getting advertisements for things because you put something within your Apple environment, and now they're making recommendations for you. Your text messages, that's an interesting one. So on WhatsApp, you have no privacy. Okay? On WhatsApp, you've got no privacy. You have no control. But there's another reason for that too. But within the companies, you have to read each and every individual privacy policy. It's why I use Amazon and it's why I use Apple. But I tend not to use Google products when I can avoid them, only because Google is not as upfront about what they do with this information as some of the other companies. So that's why I kind of read through them to figure out what I'll use and what I won't. But not the companies, again, they're mining the data so they can sell you more stuff. The other group is the one that I'm even more concerned about. And those are the people that you share the things with in the first place. You have no control over what those people do with your information. None whatsoever. You send a picture to somebody and you think it's private just between the two of you, and then they choose to show it to somebody else. You can't control that, right? I had a situation last year where I had six sixth grade boys. Sixth grade boys, how their little brains are going so wonky that they really have a very difficult time controlling their impulses. Now, this is not an excuse. They can't be like, sorry, mom, dad, my frontal lobe is underdeveloped, and that's why I did this ridiculous thing. But there is some truth to that. So we had these sixth grade boys that decided to, at a sleepover, take their cell phones, stick them down their pants, take pictures of their genitals, post them on a Finsta, and a Finsta is a fake Instagram account. Sometimes it's a Finsta, they call it a Sinsta, they call it a spam account. They'll probably come up with something else right after this presentation, so you don't know what I'm talking about. They come up with all these fun words, and they posted it on this account and encouraged their classmates to come and play a game where they matched the boy to the parts. That was the goal. So they sent it to one of their female classmates who got scared and didn't know what she was looking at. She showed it to mom. Mom is thinking, who's sending pictures of that to my child? So she called the police. Now, the boys thought they were really, really smart when they did this because they put blankets and sheets all around them in case somebody accidentally captured a piece of the house in the photo so no one would know where they are. They turned off the geotagging, the location, so no one could see where their phone was and where the pictures were being taken. And they didn't put their faces in it. So how would anybody ever find out who this really is? It took the police less than an hour to figure it out. They were able to track the IP address, which is the individual address of every device. They were able to track the devices. They had to call all the parents. All the parents had to show up. They got a forensic team together. They got a search warrant and an arrest warrant and showed up to the house within an hour of this happening. So at first, when the detective said to the boys, gentlemen, did you do this? They're like, no, officer, we don't know what you're talking about. And then the forensic team said, well, I guess you guys are going to have to drop your pants and we will identify you that way. And then the boys said, nope, it was us. I thought it was so interesting, just that one little moment, right? That they were willing to take those pictures, post them online, but when the forensic team said, well, now we have to see in person, that was like, no, that couldn't happen. That's so embarrassing. The mind of an 11-year-old, right? Or a 12-year-old. So luckily, there was a reasonable prosecutor involved in this situation because the boys were charged with the distribution, production, and possession of child pornography because it is illegal. You cannot take naked photos of children, even if you are the child yourself and you are choosing to take the photo. You cannot do that. And so what ended up happening is they're all on probation for 3 years. And during the time that they're on probation, and this is the best case scenario, I mean, they could have ended up on a registered sex offenders list for doing this. But they had to pay a $5,000 fine, each family. They had to take classes to learn why they had done what they had done was wrong. They needed to apologize to everyone they exposed to this, which I thought was an interesting piece of it. And then my favorite part is that they told the kids they could not have any access to any technology for the 3 years they're on probation, including television, cell phones, nothing, unless it's specifically for school, and then it has to be supervised by a teacher or a parent. What's that? No TV, nothing. Nothing, nothing, nothing. That was it. And one of the little boys said, I'd rather go to jail than lose my technology. And it's like, you don't know what you're talking about. But again, frontal lobe not working. Can't apply reason, logic, and impulse control here. Yes. I'm going to give you the mic.
There's one other matter that I hear in what you're describing, and that is the seemingly anonymous matter of being online, unidentified, that allows us a freedom that most of us aren't prepared for. Whereas when it is face-to-face or pants-to-pants, it is not acceptable, comfortable, or even plausible.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. I call it anonymous exhibitionism. That's just what I made up. But that's what it is, that they're willing to do certain things behind that screen, but not necessarily face to face. So my big concern here is the fact that these 6 boys had access to these devices in private spaces. So a lot of times parents will ask me, what age should I let my child have a device? And what rules should we put in place so that they can use this responsibly? And you've got to start by understanding. Hi, Rabbi Hoffman, good to see you. You have to start by understanding this idea of privacy in order to make some of these decisions about where you're going to allow the devices. We do not allow devices in our house, nothing, cell phones, we don't allow screens, no iPads, no cell phones, no computers, in the bedroom or in the bathroom. Because there is no expectation of privacy in these spaces. You cannot control what somebody else does with these things. I can't even necessarily control whether or not I somehow accidentally get a hacker or my kids accidentally download some sort of virus or spyware on accident, and now the camera is compromised. And so I don't want these devices in places where they have an expectation of privacy. We didn't use like video baby monitors that were Wi-Fi enabled, and we don't have drop cams in places where there's an expectation of privacy. And so it makes it really easy for me to say to my kids, instead of being like, no, you can't take that into the bedroom because I don't trust you. It's not even that. Well, I don't trust them. I don't trust my kids 100%. I always say this. I trust them 92.6%. The other 7.4% is their room for their frontal lobe to really mess them up and them do something and know I still love them, right? So when they say to me, well, I just want to take it into the bathroom while I'm brushing my teeth. No, your bathroom is a private space, and you do not take something where there's no expectation of privacy into a private space. Well, but I just want to lie in bed and watch something on Netflix. Nope, because there's no expectation of privacy, and that is not the time or the place for you to be doing that. Plus, there's a whole bunch of sleep issues that are taking place because we take technology into our bedrooms, but I'll get into that in a little bit. The best parental controls, and parents ask me all the time, how do I stop my kids from accessing these things? How do I see everything they're doing online? You can't. You really can't. There are some great apps like Screen Time, which I absolutely love, that is native to all of your OS and iOS devices. They're fantastic. Screen Time, you can set it up so that you can limit and restrict certain things, but does it work 100%? No. And will it stop your kids from accidentally accessing something you don't want them to see? Absolutely not. When this whole Momo thing happened, you guys know about Momo? Okay, Momo was this meme. It was originally a Japanese piece of art that was distorted and turned into a WhatsApp profile picture. And then when you contacted Momo through WhatsApp, Momo would tell you that you should kill yourself and how to kill yourself and all sorts of things. And sorry, I know I've got little ears in here. But then what happened was somebody thought it would be really funny to take this really scary stuff and splice it into YouTube videos that ended up on KidsTube. So you had some kids playing on KidsTube, which is supposed to be a safe place for them, and you've got this image of Momo showing up in the middle of Peppa Pig. My daughter Lainey and I were watching something on KidsTube a few years ago, and all of a sudden it was Frozen, and she wanted to watch this Frozen video, but yet it's Elsa being penetrated with a flute. It was some joke about this one time at band camp. You guys remember that movie? Yeah, okay. So the only reason I knew about it is I was sitting right there with her when it happened. Go ahead. But she still asks. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. So the question was, is what do we do? What do we do when we have a child that wants to watch something and we don't want to watch it with them? The truth is then they can't watch it. If they don't, if you don't have time at 4 years old, you don't take your child to the park and leave them, you don't walk 20 feet away from them. And so you don't want to take them to a community where there's 1 trillion places to go and 3 billion people there and walk away from them. Right. And so I always use the same analogy, right? So I've got a 12-year-old and I've got an 8-year-old in the house. And they both use their devices in public spaces in the house. And we have certain times when they can do certain things. And a lot of times what happens and what I do is our living room isn't pretty, but it functions for us because the desks are all kind of in one space. And when Lainey was little and my nieces and nephews would be at the house and everybody needed to do homework, we would all do the homework in the living room, and my little one would be the one that was relegated to her bedroom. She was the one that had to leave and go into a different space if she wanted to be loud, because we had kind of a quiet time there. And what I would do during that quiet time is I would do my work too. So I might be sitting next to a child, but I've got my laptop open and I'm doing my email, and then I have another child who's, depending on the age, that's sitting here or sitting across from me. But everybody's kind of doing on their devices, and what it does, a couple of things. One, especially if you've got 5th and 6th graders, it makes them much more time efficient. Much more time efficient. When you all say, we're going to take this next 45 minutes and we're all going to get our work done in this next 45 minutes, everybody tends to do that, and they're not toggling between all these different places. We have a rule not a rule necessarily, but the guideline is the ABCs of technology. You have to ask, bring, check before change. Ask first. All of our devices live on a charging station. Everything lives on a charging station. Even my devices live on this charging station. My husband's devices live on this charging station. And the reason we do that is because it reminds all of us there's a time and a place for everything. And so when my kids come to me and Charlie might say, hey mom, can I watch Glee or whatever it is that she wants to watch? She will come to me and she'll say, hey, can I watch this? And then when she first asked me if she could watch Glee, I said, I have no idea. I said, you're going to have to bring me along, which that's the B, meaning I need to first go to Common Sense Media and find out if this is appropriate for you and your age. Now we're going to sit and we're going to watch it together because I need to know if this is appropriate for you. And so she brought me along. And it was interesting. Glee is one of those shows that is really not meant for 12-year-olds. Certain 12-year-olds can handle it, and certain 12-year-olds can't. And that was my decision where I said, yes, you are a 12-year-old that can handle this show. And we ended up watching it together, and it's been kind of a cool thing for us. And so now, once a week, we actually take an hour and we watch an episode together, and it's been kind of cool, and I like that. But she brought me along. C is check before change, which means that if you're going to tell me that you're going to watch one thing, you get to watch one episode. You can't then change over and start watching something else. You can't then switch and go to YouTube videos. You can't start playing a video game because you only asked to watch that show. The other thing I like about the ABCs is it slows everybody down, and it gives me an opportunity to help them with time management. Because as they get older, time management becomes a really, really big issue where they say, oh, no, I've got to do homework. And then 3 hours later, they're still doing homework. And you walk in, you're like, what is going on? It's like, I'm so stressed out. I have so much homework and I can't get everything done. Well, more than likely, they've been switching back and forth and doing 12,000 other things while they were doing their homework. Nope, you got to check before you change. If you tell me you're going to do homework, I'm going to say to you, how long do you need? And then she might say to me, you know what, I need about 30 minutes. Okay, in 30 minutes, I'll come back and I'll check on you. And it should be done by then. And sometimes she'll say, nope, it's really not working. I need more time. Sometimes she'll get it done early, but it helps them set an expectation for themselves. Timers don't work very well. I know a lot of people will set like the egg timer, or they'll say, okay, you can do this for 15 minutes and then you've got to stop. At this age, they have a very, very hard time understanding time. And so you say 15 minutes, and then the 15 minutes is up, and then it's, wait, no, I need 5 more minutes to destroy the game. I'll get kicked off the server. Ah! Right? So instead, ask them beforehand, how long do you need? How long will this mission take? Because we're going to have dinner in 12 minutes. Can you turn it off in the middle? Nope, you can't. It'll hurt your team. Don't start that game right now. How do you know how long a mission takes? They have to bring you along so you can see how it works. I know that we don't all want to become Fortnite experts. I get that. I get it. But if you don't understand what it is that they're doing and how it works, how are we supposed to make rules that aren't arbitrary, that actually make sense? Did you have a question? Please. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Right. Yep. Yeah, it's big. Yeah. And you can turn off the autoplay too. And you can turn off the autoplay also so that they can watch one video, but it will not go to the next one. So there's just a little button at the top and you just click it and you turn off the autoplay, and that really, really helps too. And it doesn't suck them into it. They should, at 4 years old, they really should not be watching anything for more than like 15 minutes at a time anyway. There's a lot of new research that's coming out that's talking about what's happening to toddlers' brains. And what we're finding is kids, the younger they start doing this, the more hours they spend, it's actually having a neurological effect. The most recent study that was done by National Institute of Health said kids that spend more than 7 hours a day on a device or looking at a screen, there's something called a thinning of the cortex taking place. And so we don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing yet. We have no idea. It has to do with maturity of the brain and what information becomes solidified. And so for me, I'm all about mitigating risks. We know for a fact that there is no magic number as to how much screen time you should have a day, right? We know this. The American Academy of Pediatrics, when 15 years ago, they said no more than 2 hours a day, and then came back a week later and said, oh wait, that doesn't include schoolwork. I'm like, hang on, American Academy of Pediatrics, where did this number come from and how does this make sense? And what I found out is it was an obesity study, not a technology study. So then I started looking at this very, very, very differently. And screen time became much more about physical health and time management and behavior and not about technology. So rather than us saying things like, you can have 20 minutes or something like that, what we do instead is I'll ask these questions. Do I have time to be doing this, or should I be doing something else? That's always question number one. So it goes to those ABCs, ask, bring, check before change, me helping with time management. Because if we are gonna have dinner in 12 minutes, know that whatever you're doing is going to get turned off after 12 minutes. Or if you should be doing homework, it's not the right time to be watching YouTube videos. Or if you should be sleeping, kids postpone sleep, they push back sleep in order to get their screen time. And when we say something like, okay, well, you can have 30 minutes during the week and an hour on the weekends, well, what happens when you've got a Monday and it's really busy and you don't have that 30 minutes for that free time, screen time? Now you're going to have a huge fight, right? It's a negotiation that turns into a conflict. And that doesn't work for me. I'm not going to fight with my kids every single day about this. So instead, it's no, bedtime is bedtime is bedtime. There's no pushing it back. In elementary school, they need 10 to 12 hours of sleep every single night. And if they're not getting that 10 to 12 hours of sleep, they're not healthy. They really aren't. It affects their mood, their memory, and their metabolism just by not getting enough sleep. And so we can't push it back. The second question is, how's my physical and ergonomic health? Have you moved more than you sat today? Kids need an hour of exercise every day with an elevated heart rate, but they need to move more than they sit. So when the American Academy of Pediatrics says this 2 hours per day, okay, well then, you know what? I gotta think about my kids that are big readers that sit for 2 hours and just wanna read. Believe it or not, that's not healthy for their bodies either. And so we've gotten to this place where we've said, okay, you want to read for a while? No problem. But then you got to get up and move for an equal amount of time, if not more. And then you've got kids that are playing Pokemon Go, and they're running all over the place. So they're super duper active. I had the opportunity to go to an esports game. Do you know what esports are? Like Madden, NBA, FIFA. Okay, so I went to an esports competition last year. It was awesome. And I saw something I'm a gamer. I probably should have told you that in the beginning. I love video games. I'm the only person in my house who likes video games, and so nobody will play with me. But I went to this esports conference, and the athletes who were playing Madden, the esports athletes, are athletes. They were just so in shape, it was unbelievable. Here are these gamers that are muscular and fit and care about health and nutrition and all this stuff. Why? Because we now know that when your body is fit, your mind is fit, and it works in the other way too. And so gamers who spend 12 hours a day, if you've got a kid who's like, no, I'm super into video games and I'm gonna make $1 million playing video games, okay, guess what? You better be really physically fit too, because the more physically fit you are, the more mentally agile you are. And so you can't play with the big boys if you do not take care of your body too. And I thought that was really interesting. There's something called myopia, which is an eye disease, and we're seeing a lot of gamers that were getting glasses, and we're seeing a lot of kids that are getting glasses earlier and earlier because of this. It's not because they're staring at the screens, it's because they're not moving their bodies. Myopia is caused by inactivity, not by looking at a screen. Okay, so we've got to get them moving. So we want to think about their physical health. But my third one's my favorite. Does your behavior work for me? If they play a certain game and when they're done playing that game, they're a monster, they should not be playing that game for right now. If they watch a certain show and after they watch that show, they just are really rude and sassy and terrible, they should not be watching that show. Up until very recently, I let my 12-year-old manage her screen time because she was doing a great job at it. We had no issues. We really, truly had no issues. And about a month ago, we started having issues. She was going to bed every night super stressed. And she felt like she just couldn't get everything done. And she had too much on her plate. And she was really upset about it. And she wanted to quit everything. And I asked her, I said, I want you to do me a favor. I want you tomorrow, when you come home from school, write down exactly what you're doing and for how long. And she very quickly realized she was watching a lot of TV. And she didn't know it because it was, oh, well, I've got to get ready for gymnastics. And so while I'm getting dressed and doing my hair and doing all these things, I'm going to watch a show while I do it. Well, then it took that time that used to take her only 15 minutes to get ready, took her 40 minutes. You just lost 25 minutes. And those add up. And when I showed her that, I said, this behavior doesn't work. So what are we going to do? And she actually said, no TV. I'm just done. I'm going to put it away. No TV during the week. And yesterday, as she called me, I was at work and she called me and she said, I want you to know I'm home. I was thinking about watching something because I'm home by myself. She often walks home from school and I'm not there. And so she says, I'm home by myself and I don't like to be in the house by myself. And I'm a little bit scared and I'm a little bit nervous about it. She's like, so I am going to turn on the TV. I said, no problem. It made sense in that moment. What's that? Well, because it's not demonized. And I haven't created these, so the comment was, is that so nice of her to tell me? And that's who she is though. My younger one is not that same child, and if she was the one going home by herself and no one was there, she wouldn't tell me anything. She's a different child, which means I'm gonna have a whole different set of rules for her, right? Because every child is different, and fair doesn't mean equal, it means everyone gets what they need. And so for her, I can do it this way. For the little one, I can't. The little one will be going to a friend's house. The little one will have a babysitter because I can't do this with her. She's just not the same child. Okay, do you have any questions? Please. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'll repeat the question. Yeah. No. Listen, so what it was is that there's a child who likes to watch videos about ear piercing, and the parent is concerned that one day something else is going to pop up and something else is going to be getting pierced, and it's going to be upsetting to that child. So that is very possible that that's going to happen. And so what you need to do is just have a conversation beforehand and say, listen, I'm here for you. I'm your parent in every situation. If something accidentally pops up and it makes you uncomfortable, all you gotta do is tell me. I'm on team child, not team trouble. I tell my kids that all the time. I'm on team child, not team trouble. And so it's going to be better for you to come to me and tell me, because if I go into your history and I see that this happened, and by the way, don't even bother trying to clear your history because I can see everything. That's what we say, right? Whether it's true or not, doesn't matter. That's what we say, okay? And so that they understand that we are on their side. Do you guys remember when your parents said something to you like, oh, I've got eyes in the back of my head. I can see everything you do, right? And we knew they did not have eyes in the back of their head, but for some reason, we were still worried that they did. That's all you got to do, because that's where their brains are at. Is it really possible that mom has a way of seeing everything in my history? Now, there are ways that you can do this. On devices, you can go into, like for screen time, for example, there's the web content section, and you can limit adult content. It doesn't actually stop them from seeing everything they're doing, but it does stop them from being able to clear their history. And so that's something that you can, and I've even shown my kids that, like, look and see, you can't do certain things, and I can see them. It's limit adult content. And so that doesn't allow them to clear their history. It is in the screen time under general and settings, it's in screen time. So I want to take a step back for a moment, and I want to talk about how technology is affecting relationships, because a lot of the things we're talking about, is there anybody else in here who's dealing with like the negotiation and then the conflict over all of this? And it's not just necessarily with our kids. Sometimes it's with our friends, sometimes it's with our spouses, sometimes it's with our parents or our siblings. There is a lot that's going into our relationships and technology is affecting them in some really interesting ways. I don't know if this has ever happened to anyone. Do I have my phone? I don't even have my phone out. I never have my phone on me, and so when I go to demonstrate something, just pretend I have a phone here, right? Has anybody ever had something like this happen? Hi, how was your day? Go ahead, talk to me. I can hear you. What? Kids tell me that parents do that to them all the time. When I talk to kids about how technology affects relationships, and when I say kids, I'm saying 4th through 12th grade is who I talk to. Every single day, they tell me, my parents do this to me. Now, I don't know if that's true, because this is their perception. And I'm sure not every parent does this. But there's this general feeling that the rules for parents and kids are different, and that's really, really upsetting to children. Now, should the rules all be the same? No, they should not. They really shouldn't, because there are things that your kids, on Friday night, you're not going to let your 4-year-old light the candles, but you're going to let your 12-year-old. Why? Because as you get older, the rules change because you're able to do different things. But manners should be universal. The way we view our relationships with one another should be universal. What do you value in a relationship? I'm going to have you talk to the person next to you. What things are important to you in your relationships? With your children, with your significant others, with your friends? What's important to you? What do you value? Okay, you ready? You're going to talk to the person next to you. Go. You want to tell me? Yep, absolutely. Okay, does anyone have anything they want to share? Does anyone have anything they were willing to share? Do you want to share what you said? Please. Right. We want the present, being present in the moment. I'll never forget, it was probably it's probably been 6 or 7 years now, but my husband used to come into the house, and he would then take his phone and he would sit down at the dinner table. He would get home right before dinner. He'd sit down at the table and he'd keep his phone right next to him. And he would constantly be like just checking it just for a second, right? Just a second. And he said to me, and I said, you know what, you really got to put that away because you're not hearing everything that's going on. He's like, well, this is for work. It's really important and it's time sensitive, and I absolutely have to keep my phone on me. I'm sorry, it's just the way it is. Would you rather me not be here for dinner? And I said, yes. I'd rather you not be here because your body's here, but nothing else is. And everyone else at the table feels ignored. And he asked the kids, he's like, and the kids were little at the time, he's like, do you guys feel ignored by daddy? And they're like, oh yes, daddy, you like your phone more than you like us. Like they really laid it on thick. I coached them. Shh. No, I'm kidding. But he didn't realize, he really truly didn't. And so I said to him, I'm like, listen, can we do it differently? Can we just try something? Can you put the device on the charging station? And if the phone rings and you know that you've got something going on for work and it's time sensitive, I get that. I respect that. Thank you for being this wonderful husband and provider. But could you just get up from the table and take the phone into another room and take care of the call or the text or the email and then come back and put it back on the charging station? And he said, yeah, I can do that. And that's what started to happen. And there were two little words that all of a sudden solved all of our problems. Excuse me. Excuse me. He would just say, excuse me, guys, I'm really sorry. I got to take this. I'll be right back. And what he realized very quickly was he wanted to spend those 20 minutes at the dinner table with his family. He didn't like having to get up and go away. And he also realized how much more he was hearing when he did not have the device sitting there. We sometimes think we can multitask, but multitasking doesn't mean what you think it means. It means your ability to task switch from one thing to another very quickly, not the ability to text and listen to something intently at the same time. It just doesn't work. Multitasking is real though. I mean, ask any teenager, they'll show you. They can have 6 different group texts going while Instagramming, Snapchatting, and changing an iTunes playlist. That they can do. But when the behavior doesn't work for the family, then something needs to change. If you or somebody you care about is constantly refreshing, and looking at social media and they just can't stop themselves because they have to know what's going on at all times, you know what? They may need to realize that they're not present in the physical world. They're only present in this fake digital world. And maybe that charging station would be helpful so that you can put it down and really kind of concentrate on being present in the moment. If we do these things, our children will follow suit. We are the number one influencers in their lives. Number one. Does anybody value trust in their relationship? Loyalty, consideration, respect, right? All of these things. When we talk about our values, it changes the conversation about technology. Because now I'm not talking about that I'm so sick of that device, I'm going to throw it out the window. I'm talking about the fact that I feel ignored and I would like 20 minutes of your time, right? That's what you're going to be saying to your middle schoolers. Because when they get to middle school, their most important relationship is not with you anymore. It's going to be with their friends. You might already be feeling it. By 5th, 6th grade is when we start to see it. And so asking them for 20 minutes of their attention is not a problem. We do not use our devices on short car trips because sometimes that's the only time I get to really talk to my kids. And so for that, we don't do it. Sometimes we'll listen to an audiobook together. Sometimes we listen to the radio. Sometimes my 12-year-old will say to me, she'll be sitting in the car and she'll say, Charlotte is texting me and she needs to know what the homework is and she has to go to gym. So can I text her right now and tell her? Yeah, absolutely you can. And I do the same. I've got a work call coming in. Do you guys mind? I need a few minutes. This person's been trying to get in touch with me for a while. Can I have these 5 minutes? But you know what else my kids are not allowed to do? They're not allowed to interrupt me when I am texting with somebody else because that's rude. If I am texting with someone else, I'm having a conversation and I'm in my own space. And if my kids come in and say, hey mom, can you blah, 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 blah. Hang on a second. You're interrupting me. You need to wait. If it's an emergency and you have to go to the bathroom, like what I do with my little one, she just goes like this, and then I stop whatever I'm doing and I take care of her. But it's about getting back to our old school manners that really, really make a difference with this behavior. Okay? Some of the other things that we see that are affecting relationships, the not understanding how the technology works, that's definitely problematic. But we also see a lot of manipulation taking place online because of this anonymous exhibitionism and their feeling that they can say and do whatever they want. I would much rather, if your child is going to get a social media account, use their real name on the social media account, please. Okay? Use their real name on the social media account. It is not dangerous if they are not interacting with people online and hiding it from you. Again, internet predators don't just see that name, go to a website like that and show up at your house. That doesn't happen. They cultivate a relationship. We have to stop talking about stranger danger. Yes? Everything they do stupid is already attached to their names. Because everything they've done, even remember on that website, you can look somebody up by a username. Because every device we have is attached to a specific IP address. And that IP address and that device, everything you've done on it, when it goes to your house and sits on your home Wi-Fi network, everything you did on that device gets attached to your home address and all the other people in the house. The reason why I want them to use their real name, they're less likely to do stupid things. That's what it is. When they attach their real name to their social media accounts, they remember that whatever they say is stamped to them. It's when they have these anonymous accounts, they think they can say whatever they want. No, I want them to stamp their names to the things that they're saying and doing because I want them to remember that they have to take responsibility for it. The manipulation, though, That's what we should be talking about, personal safety, not stranger danger. A lot of times kids will say, I know everybody within my network of friends. I know them, I know them, I know them. Okay, I don't care if you know them. Do you trust these people with this information? And is this a healthy relationship for you to even be in with this person? Think about it like this. Can you imagine if your child goes, do you let your kids talk to strangers? Say yes, please say yes. Tell me you tell your kids to talk to strangers all the time, because you do. All the time. Even when we say to our little ones, don't talk to strangers, we don't actually mean that, because then we take them to the grocery store and some nice lady behind you is like, oh my gosh, your child's so cute. And then we elbow them, say thank you, don't be rude. We just force them to talk to a stranger. Or how many of you want your children to start ordering for themselves in a restaurant? That's a stranger. So instead of us talking about stranger danger, because 96% of kids who are abused by someone they know, not someone they don't know. Not all strangers are dangerous, and not all people who are dangerous to them are strangers. So we've got to talk about personal safety instead. And personal safety is, how do I keep myself safe from all types of people, from strangers, acquaintances, friends, and family even? What do I need to know to protect my body, my feelings, and my information? Online, manipulation is so easy to do. So easy, because it starts in a game like on Fortnite, and now somebody adds somebody else to the squad, and it's a friend of a friend. Yes? But a friend of a friend, that's another 12-year-old. So that person is safe because it's not that creepy 50-year-old pedophile my parents warned me about. It's a 12-year-old child. Can't be dangerous to me. That's nonsense. That 12-year-old could be very detrimental to your child because you don't know what that child's intentions are. And so children in these gaming environments, they won't say their first name or their last name or their address or the school they go to, but they'll talk about their favorite color, they'll talk about their favorite sports teams, they'll talk about the names of their pets, they'll talk about their siblings' names, and guess what? Those are all the answers to your passwords and security questions. People online use those conversations to manipulate others into giving information that they didn't need to have. Can you imagine if your child goes to Starbucks? Do any of you take your kids to Starbucks? Yes? Okay. So you take your child to Starbucks, and the person behind the counter says, hi, welcome to Starbucks. What would you like to drink? Is the child allowed to answer that question? Yes, because in that situation, that makes sense. And then the next question is, okay, what's your name? Can they give a real name? Yes, because in that situation, it makes sense. But what if the person behind the counter then says, so, do you have any pets? What sports do you like? What's your favorite color? What are the names of these pets and of your siblings and of the sports? How many of your kids would know that's weird? That's where we start, because that's weird. There is no reason that that person needs to know any of that information. And so in a gaming environment, it's the same thing. There's only two reasons somebody on social media or in a gaming environment or on YouTube would ask somebody questions that have nothing to do with what it is they're doing online. One, they're trying to hack into information. Two, they're trying to develop a relationship with that person. And if that's the case, who needs to know about it? You do. The only thing that is dangerous, in all the years I've been working with the SAFE Task Force, I can tell you every story starts the same way. The child says, I didn't want my parent to know about this because I was afraid they were going to freak out and take it away. That's what's dangerous. If you don't let your kids walk out the front door and not ask them where they're going and who they're going with, please do not let them wander a space with 1 trillion places to go and 3 billion people there and not know where they are and who they're with. You don't need to be, as they get older, sitting and watching every little thing, but you want to know where they are and who they're with. Even when your kids start driving, you are going to ask them, where are you going? Who are you going with? Those questions have to be there. Go ahead. No, I'm just going, perfect. Yep. Yep. Yeah. So when should they get a device or an account or any of these things? Okay. Okay, so here's my feeling about it. That a child should get a device when a life event requires that they need a device. So whether it is because it's, my 8-year-old has a gizmo watch. It's a little watch that can only call 4 numbers and only 4 numbers call her, and there's no games on this watch because she can't handle that. Okay, so that's appropriate for her. She's a gymnast and she's at the gym late sometimes and there's no the office is closed. I need her to have that. Plus she also forgets where to go almost every single day after school. And so in order to find her, we need to call her. Every child is different. My 12-year-old got an old iPhone. It was an iPhone 5 when she was 10. And the reason was because when she was in 4th grade, she was walking her kindergarten sister home from school. And I got her a flip phone at first, and it was a disaster because she started trying to text me that she was on her way home. Do you remember what it was like to text on a flip phone? Okay, the only person I know that was good at was Paris Hilton. And so she was trying to text me, and she actually stepped out into the street and almost got hit by a car. The crossing guard had to pull her up because she was trying to text me because she knew I was in a session, and so she didn't want to call, but she wanted to let me know she was on the way home. So I found one of my old iPhones and I gave her that, and I only enabled the texting and her to be able to call. And I turned off everything else because that was all she needed to have in that moment. Why did I give her a 5 and not give her something new? Because I personally don't want to start giving my children the latest, greatest, newest, especially when they're 10 years old, because then they think they should always have the latest, greatest, newest. I want them to understand that this was a tool that I needed them to have. As they get older, there might be other reasons. You may have a kindergartner that needs to have an iPad because maybe you and your ex are in different houses and there's communication issues and you want to be able to FaceTime with that child. That's a life event to me. But get them the thing that they need, and it's not theirs. It's never theirs. It's yours. Even if you have the child pay for part of it or pay for all of it, doesn't matter. It's yours. It lives in your house and you let them use it when it's appropriate to use. You may decide I'm going to get them a phone because I want them to have it sometimes, but not all the time. So it's just going to live on the charging station. And when it doesn't need to go someplace, it doesn't go. I tend not to when Charlie goes to, this is my 12-year-old, but when she goes to a friend's house to sleep over, she oftentimes does not take a phone with her because she's with a parent that I trust and she doesn't need to have it. And she and her friends have started having conversations about how sometimes the phones get in the way of them being able to really hang out. And she's decided not to go to certain friends' houses because she doesn't like the way she is treated when she's there. She feels ignored because the technology affects that relationship. Is that helpful? Okay, no problem. Please, go ahead. Yes. Yes, I love Patty. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yes, yes. Oh, I love that. So the question is the language that Patty Fitzgerald uses for personal safety the same language we use online? And the answer is absolutely 100% yes. That the minute we can remove the line between the physical and the digital world, we are doing our children a great service, right? Because now we're saying the rules in the real world and the rules online are exactly the same, which is why we want to kind of take the conversation away from technology. We want to talk about privacy means control, and you don't have control of things after you post them, so do not give up control of your body because you're never getting that back, right? We talk about personal safety. Don't hide things from me and don't give people information they don't need to have. We talk about physical health and wellness and the way that we use these things, and which is what I'm going to get into right now. And I do need to somehow find my cell phone so I can show you this. Sorry, hold on for 1 second. I'm so sorry. I was talking to all the wonderful parents who were here, and I forgot to set myself up. I apologize. Nope, I got it. I'm so sorry. Okay, so a couple of things. So there's 2 more things I want to go through. Before I do the phone, I want to just say one more thing about relationships and the way that kids are viewing themselves in relationships also. If you've got a child who is starting to derive their self-worth from the number of likes they get and the number of followers they have and the number of subscribers they have, they are actually not in a healthy emotional space. And we need to kind of turn the conversation. And if you're starting to see that your child's like, no, I've got to post a new YouTube video, or I've got to post a new selfie, or I've got to do this, I need to keep my streak going. That's a Snapchat thing. You need to take a step back and you need to ask the child, what's a healthy way to feel good about yourself? When we talk about health and wellness, we want to talk about emotional health and wellness as well as physical health and wellness. And when kids cannot figure out what a healthy way to feel good about themselves is, we're in a bad space. What is a healthy way for you to feel good about yourself? How many of you feel good when you exercise? How many of you feel good when you have like a clean eating day? And I didn't eat gummy bears for lunch. Like, I'm really happy when I don't eat gummy bears for lunch. How many of you feel good about yourself when you set a goal and you accomplish it? Or when you do something nice for somebody else? Okay, how many of you, and don't raise your hand for this one, but how many of you feel better about yourself when somebody else likes one of your Instagram pics? Okay. I started saying don't raise your hand because I started having parents raise their hands and I don't want to embarrass anybody. But there is something that is deeply innate in all of us that do seek approval from our peers. And it's true, we definitely have that. But what we need to make sure that we're doing is that we are focusing on self-esteem first and peer esteem second. Really, really important. Self-esteem means that you have a healthy way to derive your own self-worth. You do things that make you feel good, and if somebody else notices, that's the cherry on the sundae. That should not be the impetus. And it starts with when we talk about this, one of the things that we want to make sure that we are doing is that we're also role modeling that same behavior. That we are saying to our children sometimes, you know what, I feel really good about myself right now because I did X, Y, or Z, or I accomplished this, or I didn't eat gummy bears for lunch, whatever it is. But the other thing is that we want to also make sure our kids know what healthy attention looks like from us too. So when your child does something like when they jump up and down, like my daughter Lainey does, right? She used to, not anymore, but Mommy, look at me, watch me jump, watch me cartwheel, watch me fall off my trampoline and break my arm. My response to her is no. And I know that sounds really mean, and I'm not trying to be mean. I just want Lainey to jump and dance and run and play and even fall because she's happy and she's excited and she's enjoying herself, not because she's waiting for me to say good job, right? Because when we do say that good job, oftentimes what it means is, please stop bothering me, and I'm just gonna say good job so you'll stop doing that, right? Thank you. It's so true. And we don't mean to be validating this idea of peer esteem being more important than self-esteem, but unfortunately, that's exactly what we're doing. Now, if Lainey has worked really hard on a new move and I go out there and I see her do it, the first thing I do is compliment her. So I can give her the positive feedback before she asks for it, which then shows her that I am paying attention. So that's what we want to focus on as far as the emotional health and wellness. But the physical health and wellness, I think, it's really interesting, and I don't think it gets talked about enough. So first of all, how many of you have read your iPhone manual, and it actually tells you, do not put this phone 6 inches within your head? Have you read it? Okay, so your iPhone manual actually tells you, do not put this device within 6 inches from your head. So I called the Apple developers and I said, why can't we put our phone 6 inches to our head? And they said, well, there's a large amount of EMFs, which is electromagnetic force. These are non-ionized radiation particles. And they're saying that you shouldn't have them, that close to your head. There's a lot of them. Everything gives off EMFs. Everything with a power button, an on-off switch, they all have them. The projector does, the lights, the lamps. But we just don't normally sleep with a projector under our pillow or hold a lamp to our body all day long. But then I asked them about AirPods, because AirPods go directly in your ears. And the developer said, oh, I don't know. And so I said, can I talk to your supervisor? And so I did. And then the supervisor said, I don't know. And then we talked to another supervisor. Sorry, I don't know. So we don't know. And I have put in a formal request to have somebody get back to me about this, and that was a few weeks ago, and so I haven't heard anything. I apologize. So I've just decided to mitigate my risks, and I don't use my AirPods anymore. I had bought them because they were really convenient, and then I realized that this doesn't make me comfortable because I don't know. No, these are the ones that are Bluetooth. The ones that are plugged in, totally fine. They give off, again, when it's plugged in, it's totally fine because it's not using the Bluetooth technology. It doesn't use the EMS to connect, and so it's far, far less. So there's a few things that we do now also from a physical standpoint. You don't want to hold your phone like this, because when you do, that's about 60 pounds of pressure on your spines, and it's causing curves in the spine, rolled shoulder syndrome, neck pain, shoulder pain, back pain. You want to hold it up. And yes, people at Starbucks will think you're taking selfies. I don't mind. I'm really just looking at my text messages, but it's really, really much better for your body to hold it up. Plus, when you hold it this way, you tend not to use it as long because it's not nearly as comfortable. So we've really kind of focused on that. We've talked about sleep, and one of the things that we do is, remember I said I took the Echo Dots and I put them in the rooms because these EMFs cause massive sleep disruption. I don't mean just a little bit, I mean a whole lot. There's 3 reasons why the devices cause sleep disruption. The first one is the blue light from the device causes your circadian rhythm to think it's daytime instead of nighttime. So that's why all the pediatricians told your children not to look at the device an hour before they go to bed. That's the science behind it. But then we're smart, we just put on night shift or flux, or we dim the light to get rid of the blue light. But that brings me to problem number 2. We don't get off the devices. It's always one more comment, one more post. For the kids, it's one more game, one more episode, one more text. And now all of a sudden it's like 3 a.m. and you see a light on, so you go into their room and they shove it under their pillow and pretend to be asleep, which brings me to my 3rd problem. Okay, so when we have more than about 35 units of these EMFs, and Andrew, do you have your phone on you? Could you power it off completely so I can demonstrate this? Do you mind? Thank you. Okay, when we have more than about 35 units using this measurement system of EMFs within 10 feet of our head, and the waves dissipate in the air, they actually disappear the farther away it is, we are causing the sleep disruption because it stops the production of melatonin, which is the hormone that helps you fall asleep and stay asleep. Let me show you what it looks like. How many units did I say was okay? Okay. Now this phone is completely powered off. This phone is completely powered off. Okay, so a powered off phone is giving off, and I can probably get it even higher, but right now it's around 1400. So think about what this is doing to your sleep. Thank you so much. Why did I had to turn it off because a lot of people say, oh, no, I put it in airplane mode or do not disturb. That doesn't actually work because the way the phones work is they communicate via EMFs, and so it's constantly searching for a signal. It's constantly searching for the connection. Same. It's the exact same. Yeah, because it has nothing to do with the power. It doesn't have anything to do with the battery and the usage. It has to do with the connection. And so that's why we started using the Echo Dots. Now, when we use the Echo Dots, how does that work? Those have EMFs too, but first of all, the first 2 problems go away. No blue light and nothing that's distracting them from going to sleep. But the 3rd issue with the EMFs, the Amazon Echo Dot is not right next to them. It's far enough away that the waves disappear in the air and don't affect their sleep. Now, if I start to see that their sleep is being affected for whatever reason, I might take them out. Everything I do, I always say, for right now, this is how we're doing things, right? When I want to make a change in how they're using technology, for right now, this behavior is not working, or for right now, this is the information I have. Right, so alarm clocks do give off EMFs, but not nearly as much as these do, because the alarm clock is not necessarily trying to communicate with something else. So I used to use something called Clocky, which was an alarm clock that would jump off my dresser every morning and run around my room, and I would have to get up and chase the thing, and then Clocky went down my stairs one day, and so did I, and so I stopped using Clocky. It was way too early, and I was way too tired. Yes? Yeah. How are you sleeping? Right. Yeah, so when I first started learning about this, I had asked my husband because I got my phone down on the charging station in the bedroom, and so I asked my husband if he would do the same, and at first he's like, no, I'm not doing this. There's no way that these EMF, these tiny little non-ionized radiation particles that have always been around us could possibly be affecting our sleep. And so I asked for a 2-week test, and that was 7 years ago, because we both realized how much better we were sleeping. It also changed our relationship. And I know he doesn't love when I talk about this, but sorry, now it's live streaming and everyone's gonna know. But around that same time, he and I were fighting constantly. And we were fighting because it was, no, I told you, you needed to pick her up. No, you didn't. Yes, I did. And then we have a child who's being left at preschool because neither one of us showed up to get her. And we realized where the communication was breaking down. We were both sitting side by side in bed, and we were both on our devices doing our last few things that we needed to before we went to sleep. And I was telling him all the things I needed him to know, and he was telling me all the things he needed me to know, and neither one of us were hearing the other. We were having 2 totally different conversations. And once we said no more devices in the bedroom, all of that stopped. So there's lots of reasons why. We as adults need 6 to 8 hours of sleep. If you have a middle schooler, it's at least 9 hours. A high schooler, it's like 8 to 10 hours. But your elementary age students, 10 to 12 hours of sleep every single night. Good quality sleep. The solution to all of this, the solution, right? We want to be solution oriented, is we want to talk about this differently. We want to look at it differently. Get a charging station. It's such a simple, easy thing to do. And once you start doing it, you're going to love it. You yourself will love it because you will all of a sudden realize that you do not have to have this thing be an electronic leash. You don't have to be tethered to it. Somebody can wait 20 minutes for you to respond to them, and it is okay. Well, unless it's an emergency. But most of the time, and if it's an emergency, they're going to keep calling. Also, the other thing about the Echo Dots is when my mom was sick, we had a landline that we kept in the house because she needed to be able to call us in the middle of the night. And so we knew we had a situation and we needed a solution for it, and the cell phone wasn't going to be it. We got a landline. Now, and my dad still hasn't figured out, Andrew, don't repeat this, but my dad cannot seem to figure out how to use this thing. But I put an Echo Dot in my dad's house for an emergency because his Echo Dot is on my account. And so if he needs me, he can contact me through the Echo Dot. And he does really weird things with it, and I don't quite understand, but we're working on it. Sorry, Andrew knows my family. So we start with the charging station. We find these solutions. As you are using technology, if you find you're really distracted, or as your kids get older and they are, the Screen Time app, an app called Self-Control and one called Stay Focused, are apps that let them manage their time and say, you know what, block Hulu, block Netflix, block YouTube for the next half an hour so I can just get my homework done. And it starts to give them this feeling of having a little bit more control. This is really more for your 5th and 6th graders. But all of these things up here need to happen every single day. Every day, we need to eat well, we need to exercise, we need to sleep, we need to read, we need to open our minds, we need to spend time face-to-face. The reason we need face-to-face time is because smiles are contagious. And when you smile at somebody, even if you try not to, and if I look at you long enough and keep talking, I'm going to get you to smile, it's because serotonin releases through your whole body, makes you feel good, and that doesn't happen through a screen. So you want to make sure you're getting plenty of face-to-face time so you can kind of keep all of those things in check. But this last one here, being bored. We all need to be bored. We need to be bored at least 15 minutes a day. Some of us are bored in the shower and we don't even realize it. We don't take devices usually into the shower with us. And what happens, has anyone in here ever had an epiphany while in the shower? That's being bored. It allows your mind to solve big problems. And if you are constantly having input come in, your mind never has the opportunity to do that. So for Charlie, who was saying, but wait, while I'm brushing my teeth, I want to watch something. Nope. That's the opportunity for your mind to expand. We've got to think of this in a holistic way and not this specific technology way. Does that make sense? Do you guys have any final questions for me? Please. Smart TVs. If your smart TVs have been hacked, or if you have technology in your smart TV that was created by certain companies, then yes, it's very possible. Well, they are giving off the EMFs, but usually your televisions are far enough away that they're not affecting your sleep. It's when it's like right on. No, what you can do is you can just download this free app, the EMF detector, and go through your room, and you kind of see what it looks like. So smart TVs are really interesting. I prefer dumb TVs to smart TVs, and then when I want to connect other things, I just connect them externally. So instead of having a smart TV, what I've done is I've gotten a Roku. I just feel a little bit more comfortable with that because there has been so much information that has come out that technology has been put into these devices that should not be there. Now, we're going to resolve the situation. I just don't know that I currently don't have one of those devices that are in my house. So I can only go off the information I have for right now. Okay. I tend, just from a health to mitigate my risks, I don't ever put a computer directly on my lap. Okay. Gentlemen, we know for sure that the heat from the batteries causes problems with sperm mobility. We don't know, though, what's happening with the cell phones in the pocket. That hasn't been studied long enough, so we don't know. For us women, we have no idea what the laptops are doing to our female reproductive organs because they haven't really studied us. They figure that our eggs are housed inside our ovaries, so we're good. I don't know. But I make the decision not to put the devices directly on my lap because I don't know. I don't use the AirPods anymore because I don't know. I can find ways to use my technology to make my life better and still mitigate my risks. Is there a question? Please. That I used. The app is called an EMF detector. Edward Mary Frank. Yes. Yes. From an ergonomic perspective, so the question was, is it just, I've decided that 2 hours of TV is okay, but 2 hours on the iPad is not. Is that okay? So really, ergonomically, yeah, being on the television is actually better than being on the iPad because of how they sit with it. Now, if you go and you get one of those ergonomic iPad holder things, it doesn't make too big of a difference, but I don't like the distance because once again, we don't know for sure if having these screens so close to us is also affecting eye strain as well. I've heard it on both sides that yes, it does, and no, it doesn't. I originally thought that myopia was an eye strain disease caused by those smaller screens, and then I found out it had to do with inactivity. So, no, I do the same thing. I also like the TV versus the iPad because with the TV, we all seem to watch the same thing together, and I like that family time. We love watching shows like American Ninja Warrior together. We love watching, right now we're watching The Amazing Race together. And these are things that we do because we're all doing it together. And so I like the TV for that too. Yes. Mm-hmm. I know. Yeah. And on that note, I mean, there are some parents that are just like, no, the YouTube videos they watch are so stupid. They're just watching other people play with slime, or they're watching other people's reactions. And I just want to kind of put this in context for a moment. If they're watching reaction videos like the Shopkins reveals, if you've got a little one, that's what they love most. Let's think about why. Because they are watching somebody else have an emotion that they are trying to understand. That is developmentally appropriate. The same way that an older child may want to watch other people play video games instead of playing the video game. I know parents are just like, all they do is watch people playing Fortnite and they're not even playing it. Think about it like this. How many of you like to watch football or cooking shows? Right? These are things I love. And I could do them, but I'm not. I'm watching them because I actually enjoy watching somebody else do something that they're much better at it than I am. And so don't take necessarily the content as like mine is better than yours. It is developmentally appropriate for them. If it's violent, if it's something that is really disturbing, that's a different story. Fortnite's a really hard game for me to even talk about because it's a first-person shooter game. And it's really, they're supposed to be 13 to be playing Fortnite. But the average age of a child playing Fortnite is 8 to 11. That's their main demographic. And those violent video games, the first person, and they don't consider it a violent video game because there's no blood, but those first person shooter games were originally created by the military to desensitize soldiers to the violence of shooting another person. Basically, it was saying, okay, let me have you shoot somebody in this video game so when you have to go out into the field and really do it for real, you won't feel horrible about it. And now we're putting that on our 8 to 11-year-olds? That's hard for me. Are all 8 and 11-year-olds having desensitization to the violence? No, they're not. They are not. It affects some more than it affects others. You just have to look at their behavior. If your child seems to be more agitated and angry after playing a game like that, yeah, no more. They just can't handle it for right now. Okay. Yes, sir. Oh, it's okay. No, I understand. Mm-hmm. right? Which is, believe it or not, I want you to do the reverse. And I know that that sounds kind of crazy, and I completely understand what you're saying. I respect that. If it works for you, then please, by all means. But so the conversation was about location on the photos, like what the boys did in my story, how they had turned that off. Absolutely. But we've never seen, in all the years I've worked with the Safe Task Force, we've never seen an issue where one of those pictures went out onto the internet and then somebody came to the home to take a child. It's a privacy issue, not a personal safety issue. So if you don't want that out there, then I totally understand. Well, it's already out there. I understand. I'm just saying that that's not, internet predators don't work that way. They groom children. It's way too risky. Predators of opportunity, they're the guys in the white van that are grabbing kids. It's just different. The mentality is why am I might as well just develop a relationship with this person and have the child come to me. It's a whole lot safer. So yes, you can absolutely do that. But I don't necessarily want you turning on the locations when you're on vacation, because now when you send those pictures, you're letting it be known that there's nobody in your house. And when you've got websites like pleaserobme.com, which is no longer a thing, but it's defunct now. But it was a website that demonstrated how people were doing just that and how the location services, and then it would put it would take a map and it would put pins on the map of all the people who weren't home, right? And so the idea that our addresses are already out there to find. They just are. And so I get that you don't want to associate your child's face with it. Totally fine, respect that. Just please understand that it's not because I think somebody is going to come to the house and get the child. It's more of a privacy issue. Okay? It's a good point. Yes? Yeah. The question is, there is ever a circumstance where a child should be able to have a YouTube channel? Absolutely. Yes, I don't want to stifle their creativity. If they're doing super cool stuff and they want to share it, fine. You know what you can do? You can go into the settings and turn off the comments. They don't need the feedback, right? And that's usually the part that they want. But if they're doing something and they are amazingly talented, I don't want to stifle that creativity, but I also don't want them to become obsessed with the feedback, obsessed with the likes and the subscribers. If they're not, terrific. I had a child, actually from Wesley School. I had a young man, and this was 10, 12 years ago. I mean, he's got to be, I can't even remember. He's an artist. And he started drawing things and putting it out on Pinterest and on YouTube and all these other places. And he ended up making a book. And this book was about the earth. And do you know who I'm talking about? No, it's okay. Yeah, it actually became this like children's book that is sold in Barnes and Noble and all this stuff. And it all started with YouTube. And I'll never forget, his mom came to one of my sessions and she said, at 7 years old, he was an amazing artist and he had this love of the environment and he created these really cool stories and he would narrate the stories through YouTube. And I said, just turn off the comments and do this. And somebody ended up, a publisher ended up getting information from the account, about the account, and called the parent and said, hey, I'm this publisher. I love what your child is doing. We would like to do something with this. If they want to, they think about like becoming famous on YouTube a lot of times, and less than 1% of people actually make money from those advertisements and become famous on YouTube. But it does happen. Don't stifle their creativity, just do it in a way that works for your family. Okay. Please, go ahead. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Out of your control. Right. Yes. No, it's this part. It's because here's the problem is that we'll say things like, once you put it out there, it's out there forever. But what we didn't say is when you send that Snapchat picture and you think it's going to disappear after 10 seconds, you have no idea what the person at the other end is going to do with it. So are you ready to give up control of that image to that person? Because you better be. And then here's what they're going to say. But I know if somebody takes a screenshot of it. Because that's what happens on Snapchat. If someone takes a screenshot, Snapchat tells you that person took a screenshot. My response to that is, who cares? They still control the photo and you can't do anything about it. And you can't stop them from taking another device and taking a picture of the picture. So it's a matter of just using different language. We have to be very specific with them about the lack of control and give them some examples. Listen, I sent you a text message and you decided to show your friends. That text message was just supposed to be between us. I can't control what you did with it. I don't like what you did, but look, it's that simple. And so it's making those kinds of connections that really help them understand it, because they do believe that all this stuff disappears. But have them read Snapchat's terms of service. That's always a good one. Have them go and do some research, because Snapchat tells you that even though I've talked to their attorneys and their attorneys continue to tell me, no, we don't keep it on our server, it does disappear from our server, in their terms of service, it says they have the right to keep it for however long they want. Was there a question over here? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. So the question was, if your email is Gmail, your Gmail is not private. Google has the right to pull out keywords from those emails and sell them to third-party advertisers. And a picture, can Google do something? They can mine the data of the picture, meaning that they're not supposed to, but they have. So the question was, what if I send a picture via email? Can Google take that photo and do something with it? That has absolutely happened. They change their policies all the time. In 2008, I woke up one morning and Facebook had taken all my private photos and made them all public, and everything was on Google Images, because they decided to change the rules, and they're allowed to do that, because when I click the I agree button, I agreed to let them do that, to change the rules. So when you send a text, if you want to send a private photo, I would recommend doing it through something like iMessage. On your iPhone, your iMessages are, okay, so you have an Android phone? Google just hasn't been as clear about what they're doing with this information as Apple has. And so do I think that they're taking your private photos and going to put them on a billboard on Ventura Boulevard? No, I don't think that's going to happen. But I don't have the same faith in them not changing certain rules that I do with Apple and even with Amazon, just because they've been so much more upfront about it. Apple's on the scale, on my, if I was to rank them, I feel most comfortable with Apple and then Amazon and then Google. And so find things, if you want, you can share it through, do you use iPhoto at all? You can actually put it on a computer too. You can put it on a PC, and so you can share things that way. We can look at some other things if you're really worried about it. Here's what I would say. Most of your images probably are totally fine. Do not send naked photos of your children via email or text ever, 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 ever. Even if it's a super cute picture of them in the bathtub and you just wanted to send it to grandma, don't do that. Don't do that. Okay? Because you just don't know where those images might end up. But Apple does use end-to-end encryption, meaning that everything is safe within that iMessage from them. Okay? Yes. Google. So if it's a personal, the question is, are they mining Google Docs? And the answer is yes. However, they're not supposed to for education. So if this is a G Suite school, which I know it is, then they are not supposed to be mining the data of students, because there was actually a huge court case about this, and Google went to court and said, no, this is how we make money. We don't charge schools to use G Suite, so how are we supposed to make money off of this? And they said, this is for kids. You are not allowed to mine the data. So the law says that they can't do it. Has it happened? It has. So what I usually tell schools is that they should not be doing anything controversial within a Google Doc. So you don't want to have your students write an essay within a Google Doc that if it resurfaced later, it may not bode well. And the only example I can think of is when I taught at Brentwood School, I had a student in a speech and debate class, and he wrote something on Tumblr about torture in America. And it was for a speech and debate class, and so he was in favor of torture in America. When he went for a job interview at 23 years old, that Tumblr resurfaced, and the employer actually said, so how do you feel about torture in America? Has it happened? It has happened. I feel pretty good if it's in a G Suite environment, if it's in a school environment, because they really are supposed to follow that law. In a personal Gmail account, you have no privacy. They are allowed to mine all of that data. Okay? No, Microsoft is something separate. And Microsoft, you have to pay for. And so Microsoft is actually, it has better security than Google does. Yeah, then you're in a good place, right? So Microsoft, you pay for these things. If you're paying for the service, you're in a good place. Okay, yes. Yeah, again, if you're paying for Dropbox, then you're in a good place. I know Dropbox gives you a certain amount for free, but Dropbox has been pretty good about privacy. I haven't seen a whole lot of issues with them come up because they understand that if they want to maintain kind of this enterprise level that they want to maintain, they're not going to be mining the data of their people. They make a whole lot more money from their subscriptions than anything else. But even like Uber, I mean, we don't even realize all the ways our data is being mined. But Uber is mining our data. They make more money off of where we go and what we're doing than they do from the actual rides. Deborah, yeah. Yeah, Facebook. Yes. We don't know. So the questions about WhatsApp and the encryption, and yeah, it used to be, and I used to feel really super comfortable with it. And I've just seen things starting to leak out that shouldn't be leaking out, and so we're still, again, all of the information I'm giving you today is the information I have right now. I'm going to come back next year, and I'm going to have new information for you because it changes so rapidly. The best thing I can advise is before you start using a service, and if you don't want to read through all the terms and service, call the company or just go online into the chat feature and say, hey, are you fully encrypted? And what do you do with my information? And are my photos being mined for information about me? They have to give you the answer. They have to tell you. Yes. Oh, sure. Are there email providers that are, anything you pay for is going to be safe. I actually really like Apple's email service. I feel pretty good about it. Again, Apple though is mining my data in order to sell me stuff within the Apple environment. But again, I'm okay with that. So you can, if you're going to be paying for it, most of the time your employers are not using things, even if they are using G Suite, which a lot of employers are, they're now using G Suite Enterprise, which is it is encrypted and it is safe and they are not mining the data and you're paying for that service. That's a great question. That's the whole point here, is that I am not going to stop using Amazon just because they are going to make recommendations for other things I might want to buy. I'm just not. Shop.vons.com has absolutely saved us. Amazon Fresh stopped delivering to my area. Vons delivers my groceries every single Monday, but Vons is now mining my data. So you know what? I don't mind buying my carrots from Vons.com, but I'm not buying my prescriptions. I choose not to buy prescriptions online. I don't use third parties and other places because I just don't know what is going to happen to that information once I transmit it. It should be secure, but I don't know for sure. And so I'm not comfortable with that. I make decisions about what I do based on understanding how much privacy I have. So I don't care. It doesn't bother me. That website with all that information there does not bother me. I don't mind it at all. Do you guys remember when we were kids and we had the white pages? Right? We had that book that had all of our names and addresses in it. Okay, this is the white pages on steroids. I get that. But it's the same concept. Who's going to go looking for somebody in the white pages unless they have a reason to look for that person? I have seen, so the question was, are there weird things that show up on those data mining pages? And yes, I have seen weird things. But not... a lot of times kids will, let's say, if they're trying to access pornography. And so when they go into a place where it's a private browser incognito, do you guys know what I'm talking about? Okay, so let me just show you something real fast. Because there are certain things that people want to do because they think the data is not being mined. But I always tease my children. I always know what they're doing based on the ads I get. But this incognito window here, If you look at it, when you try and make it so that the internet doesn't know where you're going, you have to read it. It says the activity might still be visible to the websites you visit, your employer or school, or your internet service provider. But within this space, it's not going to go to a website like what I showed you. Okay, so you're not going to see those kinds of things there. Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, yes, yes. On your computer. So we're talking about passwords. Actually, and I don't always talk about this, but do you guys all have personal safety plans? Because passwords are part of it. Personal safety plan is like, what do you do in case of an earthquake? What do you do in case of a fire? What do you do in case my child doesn't make it home one day after school, right? Like certain words. Code words and passwords and are really, really important in this space. So we actually have a piggy bank in our house. And it has a slot that things go in, but nothing can come out. It has no plug. It's one of those old school piggy banks. And it's because all of our passwords are in this pig. And I've done this for a couple of reasons. One, because I wanted a place to have all the passwords and I don't have them online. I do like things like password vaults. There are certain apps that really are good, where you have just one master password and everything else is stored in there. What you don't want to do is just have it on your computer. Pages and pages of passwords that are stored on your computer. You want to come up with some sort of system for this. But we have ours on a piece of paper, and every account, every username, and every password is on this piece of paper and inside of this pig with the date. So as things change, I'll get a new piece of paper and I'm like, okay, I changed this password, and I write it down. And I've done this for a couple of reasons. One, so that if I ever need to I know where it is. Two, as your kids get older, it's going to start to become an issue where they're not going to want to give you their passwords. And so this is my compromise, that this is a personal safety issue. And I'll tell you, I just used this personal safety pig. So I live in Oak Park. Do you guys know where Oak Park is? Okay, so we were the town no one heard of until we caught fire in November. But do you guys know what happened the night before the fire? The shooting at Borderline Bar and Grill. Okay, so I have a relationship with a 26-year-old who lived with us on and off for many, many years. Her name is Laura. And Laura went to Cal Lutheran. And when she was living with us, I had her write down all of her accounts, usernames, and passwords, and she put them into the pig too. And I said, listen, you're living with us. You're in my home. In case of an emergency, I need to be able to access certain information, and this is for everybody's benefit. And at first she was kind of like, that's weird, but okay. So the night of the Borderline shooting, I couldn't get in touch with her. She went to Cal Lutheran. She goes to Borderline Bar and Grill on Wednesday nights, and I know she goes to Borderline Bar and Grill on Wednesday nights, and I was absolutely terrified because I didn't know what had happened. I was getting ready to get in my car. My husband wasn't in town, so I would have had to leave my kids home alone and driven to a crime scene, which would have been dangerous and stupid. And I remembered I had her iCloud account in that pig. And so I took a hammer to it. And I smashed this thing open, and I found her iCloud account, and I was able to track where her phone was and know that she was safe. And if I hadn't done that, I would have driven to a crime scene. I would have left my kids home alone and done something really, really dumb. So for passwords, it's a personal safety issue as far as I'm concerned. You need to have everybody's usernames and passwords in the house, and they need to be in a place where it makes sense. If you have a safe in your house, it can be in the safe. If you've got, a specific, sometimes people will, they have old school phone books. I don't know if you've seen this, but, an old school phone book. And so they have a system within their phone book where the information is within that phone book in a way where it makes sense to them, but nobody else would know what it is. So just something, but you really should know everybody's passcodes, passwords, usernames, accounts, all of that. Yeah, so that's the vault. And so I do feel fairly comfortable with those things for right now. So yeah, then we're having the master password or LastPass, something like that. It is, it's a different app, but they're all pretty much the same thing. They're all encrypted, and I like that. Okay, it's 10, so here's what I want to do. I want to say thank you. Thank you for being here. You guys have been absolutely wonderful. If you have more questions, I will stay here as long as you need me to. I am going to put down the mic and say goodbye to all of those of you who watched me live streaming. Thank you for joining us, and I really hope this was helpful, and I hope you guys have a really great day. Thank you.